Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the selling Archie Gray to my signing Joe Roden. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin, it's been a while, hasn't it? I think we can let the listener look behind the curtain a bit. We've not actually recorded a podcast together in quite some time. A lot of the content that you would have heard recently, listener, was pre-recorded quite some time ago. I mean, it's still timeless, great content, wasn't it? The second tier quiz, I thought, was fantastic. I really want to do that again.
Stressful, very stressful.
Well, it's stressful for you. For me, it's absolutely class. But it's because, Justin, I've been travelling, haven't I?
You have. You've been gallivanting across Japan.
Yeah. I went to the Far East to have a little nosy around, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic.
What did you see? Actually, don't tell me what you saw, because you probably saw a lot. What was the three best things you experienced while in Japan?
Do you want me to do even better than that, Justin? I've collected the 5 things the Japanese do better than us, which I would like to see integrated into British society. The first one is numbered tube stations. Now, that might not sound like much, but honestly, it makes such a world of difference. Think about when you're getting on the tube and you're like, which platform am I meant to be on? It makes it so much easier, Justin.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, just tube station number 1. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So, for example, if you wanted to get on, if this was in the UK, you wanted to get on at Islington, and then you were going to, I don't know, Piccadilly, then you'd look for,
because the stops
5.
Yeah, the stops would marry up with the amount of. It'd be easy to quantify the stops, because you're like, I'm going to Marylebone. Like, what the fuck's Marylebone?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. But then it just makes it so much simpler, because you say, if you want to go higher than number 5 on this line, you go on that platform. If you want to go lower, then you go on that platform. Just makes so much sense. Number 2, crazy vending machines. They love vending machines in Japan, and 2 of the best ones I saw was cake in a can, literally cake in a can, and a pizza vending machine, which was surprisingly nice. I had one. It was really, really good, actually. If you're other ways inclined, then you could also get used knickers in a vending machine, which wasn't my cup of tea, but it may be someone's. But the pizza vending machine was class, Justin. I can tell you that much for sure. Traffic light countdowns, which may not sound like much, but it's basically counting down until the lights change.
They do the same thing in Germany, I think.
They
have a specific tune as well in some cities. It just makes crossing the road a little bit more interesting.
When you're trying to get from A to B walking, it makes such a world of difference knowing that, this isn't going to change for a while. I'll walk further down the road then. Honestly, game changer. Might not sound like much, but makes such a difference. Toilets, which won't be a surprise to many people who are aware of Japan, their toilet game is on a completely different planet to ours, Justin. They've got automatic seats. As soon as you walk in, don't even need to touch the lid. Just lifts up for you. Got heated seats.
Oh, yeah. A heated toilet seat in the dead of winter in January in the UK.
Justin.
Oh, my God. That'd be incredible.
Honestly. I could not believe how many toilet seats over there are heated for a start. Like, pretty much every hotel I stayed at, heated toilet seat, game changer. Also, every toilet seat has a bidet. If you know, you know. And also, they don't litter at all there. It's completely litter-free streets. And the craziest thing is, Justin, they have no bins, because they've just completely normalised. Well, they just take it home with them. They've just completely normalised that you shouldn't litter on the street. I mean, it's really frustrating for me when I've got litter with me, because it's not in my DNA to just carry it around with me. But just amazing.
Yeah, I think the outlook on travelling changes as soon as you hit 30, doesn't it? Because, you can slum it out travelling across Europe or travelling across Asia when you're sort of 25, 26, staying in some sweaty venues, go to the toilet anywhere. But you literally not anywhere. But you need a bidet, you need a heated toilet seat, you need vending machines with pizza in it every 3 feet. Yeah, the outlook has completely changed with age. Incredible scenes.
It's a game changer, honestly. We can learn so much from the Japanese. One final one, bonus one, actually. They don't do tipping. They think it's rude to tip. And I fully endorse that. I bloody hate the guilt of having to decide whether to tip or not.
It's because you're a scumbag.
Yep, absolutely. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the second tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yeah, so it's been a while since we've had a talk about the ongoings in the championship, and there's been quite a bit of news which has built up in the time since we last spoke, hasn't there, Justin? Plenty of a transfer news, which we'll get into, but we'll start off by talking about managerial matters, because despite us being at the start of July now, some clubs have only just got round to appointing their managers. So we'll talk about that now, shall we, Justin? And we'll kick things off with Burnley, because according to The Sun, they're closing in on Scott Parker as their new manager. Reports say the club believes he ticks all the right boxes, and they're hoping to finalise terms quickly. Someone who will be a massive fan of this news is my colleague here, Justin Peach. Justin, you must be ecstatic about this news.
The first thing I'll say is I saw a picture. A fan uploaded a picture of him, I think, getting on a flight in Portugal onto Twitter. Okay. And his hairline looked impeccable. He was wearing a nice little sort of cardigan over a shirt with some shorts, and he looked really cool.
Even when he's on a plane to Portugal, he's still sticking to the cardigan.
He's coming back from Portugal, yeah, so he's still sticking to the cardigan. You got to bear in mind, I think it was that Liverpool game when Bournemouth got battered 8-0. It must have been about 35 degrees, and he was still in a cardigan. So committing to a cardigan in hot, humid weather is Scott Parker's MO.
Yeah.
So is boring football, which is what brings me on to my next point.
Seamless. That's what we've been missing here.
I do have a problem with Scott Parker's football. I do think it's bland. I do think it is. Topical. It's very much Gareth Southgate's possession ball. It is difficult to really stomach it and sustain it from a supporter's perspective. If you're in a pundit's perspective, I think his Fulham team underwhelmed when it was in the Championship because, the star power it had was littered. You know, it was everywhere, and he just didn't really get them going. Similarly with Bournemouth, they should have been home and hosed in those automatic spots before I think it was the final 4 or 5 games where they started to really take it through. And Dominic Solanke scored over 30 goals as well, so they really should have been a little bit more convincing than they were. That being said, is he likely to get Burnley promoted? Yes. Is he going to do it playing sexy football? No. But if promotion's what Burnley want, then Scott Parker's probably the right candidate.
Well, put it this way. When we were ranking the best managers available to Championship clubs relatively recently, I, of course, had Scott Parker second in my list. But please, dear listener, don't be fooled into thinking that I believe this is a good appointment, because I don't. I would have liked to have seen him go to a mid-table Championship side, because I believe he's been getting jobs which are too above his station. And I think, Justin, this is just another example of it.
Yeah, we need to really consider the Club Brugge spell as well, which was a disaster. And you are right, he is getting jobs above his station. He probably needs to go to a job where, he's not blessed with a wealth of talent. He's not blessed with a wealth of finance as well to recruit, as actively as his teams have. He needs to go and cut his cloth and make it harder for himself and really tactically drill into the strengths of his side, because I think he's just tried to play a certain ideology, and star-studded power has essentially got them over the line in both of his promotion seasons in the Championship. Burnley do have that, they do possess that, but if you're going to compare him and Vincent Kompany, there's no comparison. Vincent Kompany is streets ahead.
Yeah. You are right. He has got 2 promotions to his name in 2 seasons in the Championship. That's a pretty remarkable record, whichever way you look at it. And if he gets another one to his name, then maybe we are just wrong about Scott Parker.
It's how he does it.
Well, yeah, but you are right, though. The last 2 promotions he's had were with extremely talented squads, and he had to do one of them via a playoff campaign. And I get what you're saying, that this Burnley squad is strong, but I don't think it's as strong as those 2 squads were. No, so that makes it quite interesting to see how this goes. I think next season's looking quite open in terms of promotion. And this appointment, from my perspective, hinders Burnley's promotion hopes more than it strengthens them, in my view. Obviously, a lot can change between now and the start of the season, but I don't see this as a positive in terms of their promotion hopes for me, Justin, just because of Scott Parker being Scott Parker.
It doesn't. I think they could have made appointments that would have guaranteed them a a promotion push. Scott Parker delivers doubt. But then again, if you were to ask me if they're going to finish in the top 6, if I was to look at their squad compared to other teams in the division, I would say, yes, Burnley have a significant chance, a higher chance than most of those teams in the Championship now of finishing in the top 6. It's just whether or not Scott Parker's got the ability to blend everything together to really deliver that. Has he learned from his disaster spell at Club Brugge? Hopefully. Has he learned from his disaster Premier League spell with Bournemouth? Hopefully. You've got to realise as well, he's got a history of alienating players. Matt O'Reilly, who's been tearing it up at Celtic, has got some choice words to say about Scott Parker. Mitrovic, he fell out with Mitrovic, and he, as well as that, the Bournemouth before he was sacked. I mean, it was that Liverpool press conference where they lost 8-0. He was saying that the squad wasn't good enough, and Gary O'Neill keeps him up. So it's it just goes to show that he's not always been aligned with his playing staff, which is a bit of a worry as well. Because this is a young squad. This is a young squad for Burnley.
Yeah, you talk about Gary O'Neill. Marco Silva took that Fulham squad
exactly,
and got them promoted really comfortably, winning the league really comfortably. So, we've still got a lot to learn about Scott Parker as a manager, and I think this may give us a better insight. But yeah, still maybe quite a few mysteries surrounding him, despite however this goes. While we're on the theme of managers, Sunderland finally have one. It only took them 123 days. They've gone with former Lorient manager Regis Libri. Now, Justin and I won't pretend to know too much about him, but we know somebody who does. Andy Brassel is from On the Continent, our European football show here at Stack. Here is what he had to say.
Hello, second tier listeners. Andy Brassel from On the Continent here to talk a little bit about Regis Libri, the former coach of Lorient and now the coach of Sunderland. And I guess it's really a matter of context, because if you look at Libri coming in, he's come off the back of a very bad season at Lorient, in which they had the 7th biggest budget in the league, in which they got relegated. So they've been considering whether to sack him for a while. On the surface, that doesn't look great. But we have to say as well, a lot of the stuff that happened at Lorient was kind of out of his control. Some big signings, including Tamura Bakayoko, that didn't really work out, that he was sort of lumbered with. He was interested in going and trying something different at the start of last season, and they made him stay. So he's a coach with some really interesting ideas, who's been at this sort of chaotic club over the last year, and that's kind of diminished his reputation and allowed Sunderland to get him. I still think there's a pretty good coach in there, and I'm interested to see how it pans out.
Thank you, Andy. And On the Continent are, of course, providing loads of great content during the Euros, so make sure you tune into them for the final week and a bit of the tournament, plus any European football matters as the season gets underway once again. But back onto Championship matters, and it's interesting to hear what Andy had to say about Libri, Justin. He seems to think it could be quite a shrewd move by Sunderland, and I'll bow to his superior knowledge on that front. What I can say is, he wasn't first choice at Sunderland, was he? They've been linked with so many managers, many of whom reportedly turned them down. So it makes you wonder how far down the list they had to go before they settled on Libri.
Yeah, I mean, who can really say who was first choice at Sunderland? Because, I wouldn't be surprised if one of us was on the shortlist, because that shortlist was long. I mean, we didn't get the call, so we didn't get a chance to turn them down. But yes, they are lost, absolutely. But it goes to show that Sunderland might not be as an attractive proposition as maybe we pointed out, because to go for a manager who in Libri, who was sacked from a club now in League Two, is just goes to show how far they're to go down the pecking order, if you like. So, I mean, that's the cynic in me. I am intrigued by the appointment, because Libri's got some history of promoting, you're working with younger players and promoting them through to the first team at Lorient. He's also a certified sports instructor as well, which is very vague, but he got that qualification.
General sports.
Yeah, just general sports. He can do all sports. So if it doesn't work out at Sunderland, he could be a tennis coach or a bowls coach. Who knows?
Who knows? I'm fascinated to see how this goes, because Sunderland are just a fascinating case in their own right, aren't they? And what we were saying just a second ago about them having to go quite far down the list to end up with Libri, it may be a case where he's only come forward as kind of an option, so to speak. So who really knows? I think they had to go for a somewhat unknown manager because it seems like the supporters weren't particularly satisfied with some of the more recognisable names being linked with the job, Paul Heckingbottom, etc., etc. And they could have very, very easily ended up with a Mick Beale 2.0 scenario. So how good a manager is Labrie? Only time will tell. It seems like even, French football experts like Andy, for example, aren't completely sure how good a coach he actually is. I think he's got a bit of a job on getting the fans back on side because many fans have become quite disillusioned with the past 8 months, haven't they, Justin?
Well, this is it. And again, does the appointment alleviate that? Probably not, because there's a lot of uncertainty with Labrie. I mean, having that championship experience, he doesn't have. I know it's a bit of a lazy analysis, but when you're coming into a club who are the size of Sunderland and are as volatile as Sunderland, I think having that understanding of a club of that size in the championship, which is a horrible league to play in sometimes, as several managers found out for Sunderland last season, it does help to have that. But I think, as I say, if Labrie's got that ability, he always had a youth development at Lorient, which is intriguing because again, it's that working with youngsters, which is probably the main sell with Christian Speakman as sporting director at Sunderland. So, if you can do that, and if you can get the team expressing themselves the way Mowbray did, and bringing them along, because it just stuttered. There was so much potential with that Sunderland side last season to really excite and really impress, and they just didn't do it. They underwhelmed. They were disappointing as soon as Mowbray left, and quite frankly, it became a bit of an omnishambles, didn't it? So, Labrie's just got to get them expressing themselves, get them confident, and go from there. Because it's a young squad, they're going to make mistakes. Just allow them the license to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they do, whether Labrie is a success. Just in one thing that we can say for sure about Sunderland next season is they've got a bloody nice kit, haven't they?
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Beautiful, isn't it? That is.
Yeah.
Got
the long sleeve one. Oh my god.
Oh, stop it! Let's look at some transfers then. We won't have time to discuss every confirmed deal from the past few weeks, but we'll do some of the main ones, shall we? And we'll begin with Leeds United, who had a rather bittersweet Tuesday, didn't they? They've sold the embodiment of Leeds United, Archie Gray, to Tottenham in a £40 million deal. However, Joe Rodon has gone the other way to return to the club in a separate £10 million transfer. We'll start off with Starboy, Justin. It was always going to be unlikely that he would be a Leeds player next season. But let's just take a moment to kind of step back for a sec. How much of a talent did we bear witness to in the Championship last season in the form of Archie Gray?
Can I give a cynic's response first?
Oh, God, here we go. Go on.
Archie Gray was fantastic, but I don't think he's been one of the standout breakout talents I've seen in the Championship in recent years. I'm looking at the likes of Ryan Sessegnon, for example, who was extraordinary. And then, the likes of Gareth Bale, who shot onto the scene with Southampton as well. Even Theo Walcott. So, we've seen, more breakout talents come out. But Archie Gray, on a technical level, has got the ability to, taking Gareth Bale out of the equation, but Archie Gray's got the ability to really, really accelerate himself in the Premier League with Spurs. But I don't think he was I don't think he was better than some of the players, some of the young players we've seen in the Championship.
I think that's completely wrong, Justin. I was going to say it's harsh. It's not even harsh. It's just wrong. He's played. He only missed 3 games in all competitions last season for a side we would both agree were the best team never to get promoted. So, come on now. You've got to...
Ryan Sessegnon scored the amount of goals he did for Fulham.
He's a completely different player to Ryan Sessegnon.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, we're speaking on talent alone. I've seen more talented, I wouldn't say more talented, but more players that break out impressed me a lot more than Archie Gray did. I'm not diminishing what Archie Gray did last season. I thought he was phenomenal. He looked at home at Leeds, but he's starting out at right back.
He's been 17 pretty much all season, Justin.
Yeah, he has been 17 pretty much all season. It's good for him. He's been a teenager. He's been young, but as I say, look, he's a talented player. I'm not taking anything away, but I just don't think the notion of him being one of the best talents we've ever seen. No, I just disagree with the notion of being one of the standout seasons we've seen from a teenager. It has been a standout season, but I don't think it's been a breathtaking one from him. He looked at home. He looked comfortable in that team, is what I would say.
I would recommend you turn off your DMs for the next week and a bit. I completely disagree with you, Justin. I think he's in the same bracket as Jude Bellingham when in terms of sheer potential. I mean, he only missed 3 games in all competitions last season. We're talking about a guy who was essentially a 17-year-old for pretty much the whole season. To do that in as we say, probably the best team who didn't get promoted is pretty remarkable. His maturity and composure on the ball reminds me a lot of Bellingham. I think he's got, the physical attributes for such a young lad as well. It's in the same bracket as Bellingham. I think it's a shame, really, that he's only had one season at Leeds, because if they got promoted, that may have been a bit different. He would have been at Leeds for even longer. But look, they've been duly rewarded for nurturing such a massive talent, and hopefully they can make the most of that money, because that's certainly something they've got to do, first and foremost, by keeping some players around. But as far as Gray goes, I have no idea what you're spouting, Justin, because he's an unbelievable talent. I think it is worth a conversation. Do we think Spurs is the right next step for Archie Gray? What do you think? You may disagree on how much of a talent he is, Justin, but do you think if you did have, a future elite talent on your books, would you be happy for him to go to Spurs?
I mean, firstly, I'm not disagreeing on the talent he is. I'm just disagreeing on the breakout season he had. I've seen better breakout seasons from players. It's what my point is surrounding. Just to clear that one up, is Spurs the right club for him? I don't think Spurs is the right club. I think Ange Postecoglou is the right coach, but I don't think Spurs is the right club. I mean, I made the point of bringing Ryan Sessegnon into the equation. He's just been released by them, and the countless young players that Spurs have signed over the years and not really allowed them to flourish and develop, mainly because there's a pressure to be what Spurs aren't at the moment, which is a title-chasing team, and they're nowhere near that. So hopefully Ange Postecoglou is able to sort of dampen the expectation from supporters and even the board, and allow his young group of players to really express themselves. Because you look at Dragusin, for example, who's excelled for Romania at the Euros. He's a young player. He needs to express himself. He needs to allow himself the opportunity to make mistakes. And so does Archie Gray. But I just don't think Spurs has always been the ideal club to do that. So I think Postecoglou is the right coach, but I think Spurs is the wrong club.
I'm not sure. I completely get what you're saying. They've squandered quite a few very talented players in recent years. Ryan Sessegnon's a very good example. I think Jack Clark's another one. Someone who comes to mind straight away. Maybe it's different now. Maybe they're heading in a better direction under Postecoglou, because look at the likes of what he's done with Brennan Johnson, Destiny Udogie, although they are a couple of players who are quite a bit further down the line than Archie Gray is. He's got to get game time next season to continue his progress as this amazing talent that he is. I mean, he was linked with Brentford, and wow, quite a few Leeds fans I saw on social media were not particularly happy that he was being sold to a quote-unquote smaller club than Leeds in Brentford. At least he would have got guaranteed more minutes there, and be able to continue his development, and then he could make the step up to a bigger club further down the line. But it'll be interesting to see how much he does play at Spurs. I think he's very capable of making the step up at a big club like Spurs, and hopefully he does get plenty of game time, because I think we genuinely have an absolutely future elite talent on our hands here, Justin. I'm looking at this from an England perspective, of course, with it being the Euros and what have you, but I genuinely do think he's a marvellously talented player who will go on to great things, without a doubt. Well, it's obviously a shame for Leeds to lose Gray, but a great way to ease that blows by bringing in a player like Joe Rodon. It's a massive, massive, massive boost getting him back, isn't it, Justin?
Huge boost. This is why I think it's such a good deal. I know a lot of Leeds fans were saying that it wasn't, but you get £30 million and Joe Rodon. That's a fantastic scenario you find yourself in, because Joe Rodon was one of the best centre-backs in the division last season. He knows the style of play. He probably should be playing in the Premier League. Again, a player who probably made that the wrong move to Spurs. I know he wasn't as young as Archie Gray or Brennan Johnson was when he moved to Spurs, but I think Joe Rodon, if he wasn't playing for Spurs, he could be playing for a Wolves, a mid-table Premier League side quite comfortably. Is what I'm getting at, and you're getting a player who's got that quality playing in a Championship. I think it's a huge coup. Yes, it probably cost you about £10 million, but Joe Rodon's in his peak years. He's an international. He's international as well. He's got experience playing in the top level, and quite easily would be one of the best centre halves next season as well. So I'm really excited by it. No reason to be excited because he was there last season, but he's a phenomenal talent.
Yeah. Well, if Leeds went up, one of the first things they had to do was get Joe Rodon back. And it's quite ridiculous, really, that they're in the Championship and still managed to get him back. I just think that's absolutely huge. And the thing is, as well, you're spending £10 million, but it's not as much of a risk, is it? Because you know what you're getting with him. You know there's not going to be any, adaptation risk here because he's already been here and done it with Leeds. He knows the players, he knows the club, etc., etc. And that's quite a big thing. So that's why it's such an impressive signing for Leeds, and it shows that he really enjoyed his time there if he was so keen to come back as well. And of course, he was unbelievable for Leeds last season. He was, of course, included in the second-tier team of the season, just in one of the most prestigious awards you can possibly get at Championship level. And he also had that ridiculous partnership with Ethan Ampadu, didn't he, for the second half of the season? Well, the first half of the second half of the season, where they only conceded, one goal in 13 games or something like that. It's been so long since the season ended now that I can't actually remember. But they were unbelievable at the back, weren't they, for a quarter of the season, and a big part of that was down to Joe Rodon just being fantastic. And plus, when it comes to Daniel Farke centre-halves, he is the ideal guy in that respect,
really
isn't he, Justin?
Yeah. No, he is. It's that comfortability on the ball. It's that again, comfortability of playing with a high line. He's a leader as well. I think is a big thing. He's a good communicator, and that's why I think he's a Premier League standard defender. You don't get that from a Championship standard defender, do you? You get that from a Premier League standard defender.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who comes and goes at Leeds over the next few weeks. They're the bookies' favourites to win the league currently, of course, but Somerville, Ruta, Nonto, Kamara, etc., all being linked with moves away. Fascinated to see how their squad will look come the 10th of August, but great start getting Joe Rodon in, of course. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll discuss some more transfer news, including rather contrasting windows so far in Sheffield. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Now, the Championship club have, without a doubt, been the most active in the transfer window so far. In Sheffield Wednesday, they have 6 signings through the door already. Ben Hamer from Watford, Jan Valery from Angers, Svante Ingolson from Hansa Rostock, Olaf Kabaki from Arca Gdynia, Jamal Lowe from Bournemouth, and perhaps most notably Max Lowe, who's become one of only a handful of players to move directly from Sheffield United to Sheffield Wednesday. Now, there's expected to be more signings on the way through the door very soon as well. Also worth mentioning, Josh Windass has signed a new deal after it looked like he could be heading out the door as well. But what have you made of the business, Justin? Sheffield Wednesday haven't been messing around, have they?
They haven't. I've been really impressed with it. I think the quickness in which they're addressing balance issues within their squad is massive. I think Max Lowe coming in at left back is such a coup for Sheffield Wednesday. I know he's got injury problems, but if you go back to that Forest loan spell, Max Lowe for 2/3 of the season was pivotal for Nottingham Forest. Just adding that defensive balance to Steve Cooper's system. He's one of the best defensive left backs in the division for me as well. Great in one-on-ones, really good defensive full-back. And then Jamal Lowe, I picked him out. I think he's one of my, as a free agent, I would have been all over him. I think he's got that versatility and flexibility. He's great out of possession as well. He's a hard-working individual with a lot of technical qualities. So he's going to suit Danny Raw's system perfectly, and he can score goals if he's settled, which is great. And as I say, they've addressed balance issues because Jan Valery coming in right wing back again adds depth into the flanks as well. So yeah, really impressive. Danny Raw is not messing about. I'm not going to make any huge predictions now, but it gives me a lot of optimism for Wednesday heading into the new season, which, go back to year today, wasn't there.
You're absolutely right, Justin. Cast your mind back to 12 months ago. It was the complete opposite, wasn't it? Yeah, the most notable signing there for me is Max Lowe. He's someone I've always really liked, and I thought he might even stay in the Premier League. So for a side who finished 20th in the Championship, to get him, with all due respect, it is a massive coup. The rest of the signings, I think they're improvements on what they've got. Having said that, I wouldn't get too carried away just yet. I'm kind of interested by Olaf Kabaki from Arca Gdynia in Poland. He's got quite a few goals over there, so it'd be really fascinating to see how he adapts to the Championship. But there's still a lot of work to be done. As things stand, they've only got 2 centre mids, one of whom is Barry Bannon, who will be 35 in a few months' time. But I admire the ambition that's been shown so far, because Danny Rule clearly wanted backing when he signed that new contract to stay at Hillsborough, and they've given it to him so far, haven't they, Justin?
Yeah, they have, and I think that's a real show of commitment to Danny Rule, because again, when you go back to last year, Isco Munoz was they were scraping around a little bit for signings, weren't they? It wasn't a very well organised summer by any means. So they're getting their business done early, which getting players in for pre-season is such a vital thing, because I think the natural process of things now is teams will naturally quieten down a little bit. Players coming back from holiday get stuck into pre-season training. Managers will see what they need, see what they've got, and see what they need. Obviously, some teams are in poorer states than others, so signings will constantly come through the doors, as we will talk about in a moment. But naturally, the process will be get bedded in, get pre-season training done, and then managers start to address squad issues just before the season starts. So, this is really impressive work from Wednesday, and it's been a really exciting summer so far.
Yeah, and it's interesting, off the back of them signing Max Lowe and Jamal Lowe, it started to get me thinking about whether they could put together a team of Lows, Justin, get Ryan Lowe in as manager.
I was going to say sack Danny Rule, get Ryan Lowe in, that'll be interesting. But
who else did they get?
I'm tapped out on Lowe's. Josh Lowe. I think he was a winger who was a lower league winger, completely right.
Oh, okay. What about the guy who was at Blackburn for many years, Jason Lowe? Jason Lowe? That's right.
Jason Lowe, I think he was at Salford last I knew. There's Chris Lowe, who was at Huddersfield.
Yeah. I think that was pronounced Love, but
Yeah, it's pronounced Lowe. It's spelt Lowe. So you can get away with it.
Yeah. They've had quite a few Lows last season, haven't they, Justin? So, appointing Isco Munoz was one of them. So it's good that they're in a few different types of Lows now. Let's go over to the red half of Sheffield, where things aren't looking as optimistic, it's got to be said. In fact, will the last person to leave Bramall Lane remember to turn off the lights? 11 players have now left the club on a free since the end of last season. It includes the likes of Ollie McBurney, John Egan, Chris Basham, Ollie Norwood and Wes Fotheringham. It means Sheffield United only have 13 players on their books currently who are over the age of 21. One of them is Cameron Archer, who's expected to go back to Aston Villa due to a buyback clause they have. Others have been linked with moves away. So could be a situation where there's just no one left at Sheffield United come the start of the season. Justin, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah. Can't have injury problems if you don't have any players, eh? Where are the excuses for the coming season?
Clever.
Yeah, there we go. I'm quite shocked actually when the statement came out that John Egan for Sotters was leaving. My jaw dropped because I'd have guaranteed him at least staying out of all those players. It's quite astonishing, but then you sort of got to realise the state of the club are in. Behind the scenes, there's been talk of a takeover for a hell of a long time now. But I think the disaster that Sheffield United have now is they've lost so many personalities. It's not just the experience that they've lost, or the amount of games they've played together, or even the quality. It's just the personalities that they've lost. They're starting again. This is a new era for Sheffield United, and a really hard one. And Chris Wilder's got to somehow guide them through it by starting again. I don't envy him. I don't envy him at all.
No, I think that's a really, really big point, Justin. The number of players who have been there for so long and defined 2 promotions at Sheffield United, and they're all gone now. There is no one left who was there from the past 2 promotion seasons, as far as I'm aware. As things stand, Sheffield United are shaping up to be one of the weakest newly relegated sides we've seen since Sunderland a few years ago, aren't they? I will point out it's not that bad, but it is turning into a bit of a farce. And it was always going to be tough to bounce back after a season like the one they just had, of course. But this is making it all the more tougher. When you look back at the clubs who have come down in recent years, no matter what state they were in, you can usually point to at least a handful of players who are Premier League quality. That's difficult to do with Sheffield United, and the ones who are arguably Premier League quality, they've all been linked with moves away, haven't they?
Yeah, you make a really good point about it being one of the weaker squads coming down. It's even weaker now, and personalities leaving. You look at the squad and you think, well, where are the type of players that are going to roll the sleeves up and grit their teeth and look ugly, and when things start to get rough and tough, they're going to make up and they're going to stand up and make it count. If you're going to throw cliches in there, Jack Robinson maybe, he tackles hard. He's one player. There's no the Chris Morgan types, is there? It just feels like the personalities, the experience is all gone. The squad's starting again, and it's really hard to see where they go from here, especially without a takeover, because it just feels like they're going to be scraping the bargain basement of free transfers like other clubs have done in previous years, and they're going to struggle this coming season. It's a big worry. And again, you consider the fact as well that they've got injury problems. Yeah, Ryan Bruce is still at the club, but he's got injury problems. Daniel Jefferson was a young player, but he's been released as well. He was the next generation, if you like, but he's leaving. So, it's quite shocking. Who's the goalkeeper now at Sheffield United? But Fotheringham's leaving. Adam Davis has left, hasn't he?
Well, they had that Gerbic, didn't they? But he
wasn't very good.
He's been linked with a move away as well, and he just doesn't want to hang around anymore. So, that's the situation they're in. I mean, I have seen reports that they've been strongly linked with Harrison Burrows and Ricky J. Jones at Peterborough.
Why would they go there?
Well,
what's the motivation? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it seems like they may actually go, Justin. And, I think they are a couple of good signings because, early 20s still, that's good. Having said that, it doesn't seem like these big moves are going to be able to get done until a takeover is done and dusted. And I've seen them linked with plenty of other players, but by and large, most of those signings you'd expect a mid-table championship club to make. I think last season and the current state of the squad is making it extremely difficult to attract the calibre of player they would need to come anywhere close to bouncing back at the first time of asking. And that's before you even mention the takeover, which is just slowing things down so badly. So they desperately need to get that done. I don't know where we are with that now. It's quite difficult to tell from the latest reports, but the long and short of it is it's not promising at all right now. A serious amount of work needs to be done this month to get Sheffield United ready for the new season, and whether enough gets done before then, God knows at this stage. Now, a club we're both feeling quite optimistic about next season, just in Coventry City. They've reportedly spent £5 million on midfielder Jack Rodoni from Huddersfield. And I like this one, Justin. It seemed like an obvious replacement for Callum O'Hare, who's now officially left the club on a free, but an obvious replacement nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a good signing. I do like Jack Rodoni. He was a player who, in a really poor Huddersfield squad, looked like he had the necessary quality to thrive in the Championship. There weren't many players at Huddersfield last season who had that. I think he's a slightly different player to Callum O'Hare. He's not an out-and-out number 10. He's a bit more of a number 8, but he's a technical operator in that final third, and he's going to add a lot of quality that Coventry probably need as well, especially in the supply of Haji Wright and Ellis Sims. And if Mark Robbins is going to play a 4-2-3-1, then Jack Rodoni's able to fit in one of those three positions centrally, which is a great asset to have. £5 million, maybe. I would argue they probably overspent a little bit on Jack Rodoni. Coventry do have a habit of overspending a little bit under Doug King, I would say. Like Liam Kitching is a signing that comes to my mind for that. But look, I think it's a good signing. I think he's going to add a lot of quality to Cov, massively.
Yeah. It may seem like quite a lot of money for a player who's just been relegated, but you are right, Justin, going back to what you were saying before. He was by far and away the standout player for them in an attacking sense. Mikael Hennick was very good at the back for Huddersfield, but it was those two by quite a distance who stood out for Huddersfield. Want it. But, you're spending £5 million, you're getting someone who's only 23. So there's so much work, there's so much, growth room there with him. And he mainly plays down the middle, but he can play on either wing as well. Excellent dribbler, works his socks off, could maybe do with improving his final product.
So did Callum O'Hare.
A lot of talents to do. Yeah, exactly. I've just inadvertently described Callum O'Hare. So there you go. That's why Rodoni is such an obvious replacement.
Because he's wasteful.
Because, that's the thing that's held Callum O'Hare back, isn't it, over the past few years? If he had that final product, Coventry would have lost him a lot sooner because he'd be playing in the Premier League and they would have sold him for 10, 20 million pounds. Rodoni is basically Callum O'Hare, but younger. So that's why I really like this. I think it's an excellent move and provides a lot of potential and a lot of, a lot for Mark Robbins to work with there in getting him into a Premier League player, which is ultimately where Coventry wants to be. And if they've got someone like Rodoni, who is only 23, and they spent this much money on him, they clearly think that he will be a Premier League player at some point. Preston have confirmed the departure of their long-serving midfielder Alan Brown. He leaves having made 414 appearances since making his debut in 2014. 414 appearances, Justin. I was startled when I saw that. I mean, how many players nowadays in the Championship have made 414 appearances for one club. It's remarkable, isn't it? But Justin, we did briefly speak about this during our episode where we went through the best out-of-contract players. There was still a chance he would re-sign when we were doing that episode. That's obviously now not the case. And he's understandably been hotly linked with a move to other Championship sides, which is very understandable, isn't it?
Yeah, this has got West Brom 3-year deal all written all over it. You know, just to play who's at the end of his, not at the end of it, at the wrong end of his 20s. He's got a lot of experience in the Championship, and Corberán likes, disciplined operators, so it just feels like it's a very West Brom signing. But look, he's an experienced player. He was leader at Preston, so it's a big loss for them. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because sometimes, for me, I would argue that I wouldn't know what Alan Brown brought to a team at times. Is he a goal scorer? Is he a combative player? Does he bring energy? Maybe all of the above. But
definitely the last two. But
yeah, but I just think it gives them a chance to move on a little bit, freshen their squad up, and maybe add some bit more ingenuity in that midfield. You've got Alan McCann, who's still trying to break through as well, which I'm a big fan of him. Ryan Ledson, who was very combative last season. Ben Whiteman as well. So I think there's probably still good depth there, but I think probably the right time to move on. Does he get a testimonial year? Does your 10 years have to tick over into the next year? Or is it,
sure.
He's hit 10 years now? But
not sure how it works with the old testimonials. I know Liam Palmer at Sheffield Wednesday's got a testimonial coming up, which is another one which is probably very deserved. But with Alan Brown, I think it's more a case of that he wants to progress as far as possible in his career, and he's clearly looked at the situation at Preston and thought that's not going to happen. I've been there for 10 years now. We've got a ceiling, and we can't break through that ceiling. He's coming off the back of his best season in quite some time. So now's a great time for him to move. He is 29 now, so he's coming towards the end of his career, but still I think he'd be a great signing for so many sides. In fact, I've seen him linked with Coventry, a club we were just talking about recently. I think that'd be a really fascinating signing. Him alongside Ben Sheaf, that would be a tasty one for me. Sheffield United is another club he's been linked with. I wouldn't recommend that based off everything that we were saying earlier.
They need players.
They desperately need players. But if you're looking for him to make that step up like he's clearly trying to do here, then certain clubs make a lot more sense than others. But yeah, that's clearly what he wants to do, isn't it? Just he wants to try and make the most of his career with what he's got left.
Well, yeah, I mean, Preston are probably. It's almost the wrong time to leave Preston, because I think right now Preston are probably in their best position to make that step up into becoming a playoff challenging team. Are they not? I mean, if you look at it is hard to be really convinced by that. But
we've been saying this now just in pretty much every summer that we've been doing this podcast.
It's true. But the last two seasons they have come close to finishing in the top six, and this is a season where it's probably as competitive as it will ever be in terms of teams outside the top six. So I think it's probably the best time to be at Preston is now. So that's a cynical view, but I'm sure a lot of people at Preston will wish him well, because he's been a great servant for the football club.
I think now's the best time for him to move, to be honest, to try and make the most of what he has left in his career, try and make that step up and get beyond the ceiling that Preston have clearly found themselves in. Justin, we'll finish off with your beloved Derby County. They've completed the triple signing of Ben Osborne, Caden Jackson and Jerry Yates. What do you think, Peachy? Shall we start organising the bus parade now?
It's a fucking good League One squad, isn't it?
Oh dear. Derby back in the Championship after a couple of years away, and cynical Justin Peach is back out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of these signings. I think Ben Osborne's a very good signing. I think a lot of Championship clubs would have been would have been a good fit for him. But he's come home. He's from Spondon, which is in Derby, if anyone wants to, a bit of Derby trivia there. He's from the city, which is superb. Caden Jackson, 28 goals in not too many appearances for Ipswich. He's not exactly a goal scorer. And Jerry Yates, there's a bit of a love-hate relationship with him on this podcast, because again, he's a player who can have scoring spells, but again is very, very wasteful. So look, it's a very hard-working squad put together by Paul Warne. Does it convince me that they're going to stay in the Championship? No. Is the age profile of those players what Derby need right now? No. As I said, I'd be more excited if that was League One squad.
Yeah, just following on from what you said, Caden Jackson scored 28 goals in 199 appearances for Ipswich.
Prolific.
You said not many appearances, which would imply that's quite a good tally. But it's not prolific. He's top score for a season at Ipswich was 11. So make of that what you will.
They're grafters, aren't they? They're grafters. That's what that's what he's bought. They're grafters. That's good to have, but this championship's got lots better. It's improved massively on a technical level. Therefore, you need technical quality, and unfortunately, they don't have it.
Yeah, well, if Paul Warmer's playing Football Manager right now, he's clearly gone on the search bar and gone for work rate 15, teamwork 15, hasn't he? That's clearly what he's doing. I think Ben Osborne's a good signing. I really, really do. I think, obviously, he's got his links to Derby anyway. Many years of not being in the best light with Derby fans after his service at Nottingham Forest. But if you saw that very emotional interview he did not too long ago where he talked about his dad, who's unfortunately passed away in recent months, then it's a really nice move for him and just works out really well at this stage in his career. Caden Jackson, Jerry Yates, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, Justin. Two players who I haven't spoken about fondly in the past 12 months or so, but they work hard. Jerry Yates did score quite a few goals in a green patch with Blackpool a couple of seasons ago. Is Paul Warne the man to get the best out of him? I'm not too sure, but yeah, he's clearly gone for industry, hasn't he, with these signings.
Strike force is James Collins, Connor Washington, Caden Jackson and Jerry Yates. Doesn't strike fear into opposition. And I know I'm a Derby fan. I am overly cynical because it's my football club and my team. Fuck me, that is not exciting me at all.
Oh dear. Great start, ladies and gentlemen. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been kind of a news roundup of everything that's happened in the Championship over the past few weeks while I've been on my jollies over in the Far East. We'll carry on talking about all the transfer news over the coming weeks, and we will be actually doing a Q&A. So fire in your questions to us. You can either get in touch via email, secondtierpod@gmail.com with your questions. Alternatively, you can DM us on Twitter. That'll be a great way to get in touch. We'll also put out a tweet later on Thursday for you to send in your questions as well. You just reply to that and we'll answer as many as we can on Monday. But this has been the Second Tier podcast. We are counting down to the start of the new season. Are we counting down, Justin? It feels like it's too early to be counting down. Do we have to wait until the Euros have finished?
It's only a month away.
Yeah, but I feel like we have to wait until the Euros has finished before we count down. Do you know what I mean?
No, screw the Euros.
Okay.
This is Championship football.
Yeah.
This is the best league in the world.
I mean, there's not long now until the Euros. It depends how long you want to count down, really, doesn't it?
We'll
start our official countdown after the Euros is finished.
Or until after England are out.
Yeah. Well, see you Monday, guys. But yeah, we'll be counting down to the new season very soon. I can promise you that much for sure, ladies and gents. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.